All right. Let's get this party started. Yes. So we have two slides here. So we had some very thorough debate. It was a very, very productive working group. And I want to thank everybody that participated, everybody that shared their opinions. There's some very, very smart people working this very, very difficult problem. And I'm really excited about the future in ISAM based on what this group is accomplishing, what they're doing, and their responses to some of these questions and difficulties. So we spent a lot of time talking about what were the challenges and what were the opportunities, because there's a lot of overlap in a challenge and an opportunity for this group. ISAM has been being worked on since the start of space, but it's going to be what grows our logistics infrastructure and grows our capabilities over the next century and in this upcoming decade. So this is very exciting for all of us. So when we were looking at challenges and opportunities, the first one that came to mind was launch beyond LEO and how its cost reduction is affecting ISAM, because there's a challenge there in the fact that lower cost satellites, it's going to propagate the growth of lower cost satellites that maybe don't need servicing and refueling and that. However, so that's a short-term increase to cheap satellites, but it also will continue. So in the LEO environment, there will maybe be a little bit less use case for certain ISAM capabilities. However, that super heavy capability and the reduced cost to access to space is what's going to allow for the propagation of these complex technologies to do servicing, refueling, manufacturing, and all of that on orbits. So that's what we looked at as our first challenge and opportunity. The second one, we looked at policy regulations, ITAR, and overclassification. So we viewed that as a challenge specific to ISAM in some ways. Of course, ITAR restrictions are going to be an issue for a number of different space capabilities, but for our pod, it's specifically going to be an issue for retrieving satellites from international partners. It's a complicated matter, and so we just took it down as a note so that way I can sync back with Catherine after this and ensure that we properly address it in our report. And that we get her expertise on this as well. Funding. So this was one of the more interesting debates, because you would think that with the pullback of VC funding, that everybody would view this as the sky is falling in, and that was not necessarily the feedback that we received. There is opportunity in VC funding reduction for certain companies. That doesn't mean that there's still not a risk. Everybody acknowledges that there is a loss of opportunity if there's less of a financial pool to pull from. However, for companies with good fundamentals that aren't PowerPoint companies that are building out technologies, this is actually an opportunity with reduced noise for them to go and get the money that is available, build a product, and advance our ISAM capabilities. So I thought that was really, really cool to hear from the group. And I will just move on from there, but I really thought it was interesting. So the next one, international considerations and developments. This was both, once again, a challenge and an opportunity. There's going to be competition. It's not just the US in space. I think we all know that, but there's also an opportunity for collaboration, working with our allies, ensuring the growth of a logistics infrastructure that will support good behaviors in space and growth and incentivizing good behaviors within our international community. And then the last one, there's a perceived risk versus the current state of the industry. The ISAM mission is one where from the outside looking in, people are very, very, very cautious about what risks are taking place. Oh, we have a satellite coming up to my satellite and approaching. However, this is already being looked at, and we have a number of accomplishments that have already happened in the past few years leading up to this We talked about those. We're going to identify specific ones in the State of the Space Industrial Base report. But also in the next 12 months, we're going to have greater opportunities that we need to do a better job of advertising, because the current state of the industry is strong in our ability to do rendezvous and proximity operations successfully. I actually do want to get back one. Sorry, I just want to hit on the last sub bullet there. Demonstrations are necessary, but not the end state. So demonstrations are going to prove out a lot of what we're doing in ISAM, buy down risk. It will finance technological development. However, there are also concurrently missions occurring. These missions will be a little bit lower risk than the demonstrations. However, they're providing that investment and opportunity. So I just wanted to point out that both demonstrations and expensive, sometimes bespoke missions are leading the way in what the future will be. Next slide, please. So what critical actions do we think that we need to take as the government in the next 12 months, sometimes in coordination with the industry and commercial partners here, but mostly what is being tasked to the government itself to address those opportunities and problems to overcome. So we wanted to do a better job as an industry to message our successes, get out ahead. There's going to be issues and difficulties that come with ISAM. This is very complex as far as, so I know that I just said, we've had a lot of successes and the current state is good. However, this is still difficult work, and we're going to need to continue to push the needle, take risk, and we need to ensure that the community, when we're advertising this, understands that we are pushing the envelope, that this is exciting, the same way that other industries have advertised their work. And we think that we need to do a better job of that in advertising our successes. The next one, tasking the new Cosmic. We heard from them this week in conference to some market analysis. Refueling, servicing, and manufacturing are only going to be commercially viable if it will save the commercial users cost and increase their opportunity for a better product and higher profitability. So tasking Cosmic and Converse to work with industry and the government to identify where that threshold will take place in order to bring down the cost of these services and grow is going to be the next step in order to get buy-in from the larger government entities to invest in this technology and grow our mission set. Next, identify the level of funding that will provide the greatest level of capability. So Orbital Prime, we just were pointing out as a key data point. There's a level of funding that is necessary for space is expensive. I think everybody in the room knows this. If I give you $1 billion, you can probably do anything. If I give you $1,000, you probably can't do very much. So we wanted to task the government itself, kind of also going back to Cosmic, but this is going to need to be research done in order to identify the level of funding that will provide the greatest level of innovation and capability without increasing the noise. The next one, funded challenge for large-scale remote manufacturing, repurposing, assembly, and upgrade. So really this is, fund demonstrations, fund missions in order to move the envelope. And when we're talking about remote manufacturing, there's things that can be done in the next 12 months to identify, terrestrial manufacturing that could then be utilized in MEO or geo orbit down the line. So all of these technologies that we're going to be using in coordination in ISAM, some of them will start here, and we can repurpose technologies that we're using here on the Earth. And lastly, work within the NDAA to reduce overclassification and regulation for RPOD. So once again, coordinate with Catherine and the SSIB policy working group and look at timely identification of an authorizing organization to provide validation for RPOD. So, or to provide approval for RPOD, because as it currently stands, there's some risk involved in approaching a satellite and getting through that red tape in order to do so. So that's something that we can really target in the next 12 months. I want to thank everybody for their time. And this was an excellent SSIB.